Welcome from European Forum Alpbach. I'm Claudia Czerwinska and you're watching TVP World. In recent days, majority of our coverage revolved around the ceasefire and the peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. And yet, the statements that we've heard in recent days seem to be pointing in a slightly less positive direction, leaving general public and world leaders with a less positive outlook. It is my pleasure to welcome Garvan Walshe, founder of Article 7 Intelligence for Democrats. Garvan, thank you so much for joining me here in Alpbach.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on TVP World and also in Alpbach itself.
Lovely. So let's start with some of the latest news. Do you think that Russia's recently steady advancements in the Donbas region in the east of Ukraine strengthens its hand when it comes to possible further peace negotiations? And how do you think it's actually going to affect the ceasefire? I
mean, the thing is, the British Ministry of Defence estimated that if Russia continues its advance at its current pace, it's going to take them 4 years to take control of the Donbas provinces. They're probably going to take about 2 million casualties doing that. So they're making a slow advance, but it's not clear it's an advance that they're able to convert into anything tangible. These cities are very well defended by Ukraine. Some of their best regiments are there, particularly near Donetsk. So it's a pretty tough ask for the Russians. They're obviously trying to get in negotiations what they've been unable to get on the battlefield, and that isn't a very strong negotiating position.
We've also heard from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, who accused Russia of doing everything it can to prevent a meeting with Vladimir Putin to try and end the war. Do you think that the meeting will, at long last, actually take place between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky? We've also heard from Mr. Trump, who said that he would actually like to take a step back from these negotiations between the two.
I think if Trump is saying he's going to take a step back, it means the meeting is less likely to happen. A lot of this is about the Trump show. Trump wants to be seen to be a peacemaker, so he wants to convene a meeting with the two guys. But the thing about Trump is Trump wants to be there for that. Otherwise, it doesn't give anything to him. And since Putin thinks he's making a slow advance, and Zelensky doesn't think he can in a position to make any concessions to Russia, it's not clear what would be gained from these negotiations, even if they took place.
So do you think that Donald Trump is actually willing to drop the ball when it comes to these negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? After all, during his campaign, he said that he's going to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours, and then that period of time extended. Well,
Donald Trump is famous for saying lots of things that, not only aren't true, but they're things that he doesn't even continue to believe 10 minutes after he said them. So, yes, he'll say something. Donald Trump will say things to fill air. He'll say things to make campaign promises. It doesn't mean he feels particularly bound to live up to them.
After the recent meeting in Alaska and the meeting with the European and Ukrainian leaders that took place only days before Alaska, we've learned about the position of the U.S. when it comes to the European stance in supporting Ukraine, especially in regards to the peacekeeping mission. And that's another point that I would like to touch upon here. But the coalition countries, the coalition of the willing countries, seem to be quite withdrawn when it comes to certain activities concerning the peacekeeping mission, like, for example, sending troops. Why do you think that is?
Well, if we look at what would the peacekeeping mission do? It would be to deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again. And it's not clear that adding 10 or 15,000 European troops to somewhere Ukraine already has 700 or 800,000 troops is the best way to use European forces. We need to think about how to use European forces in a way that give Russia pause in other theaters. We might, for example, want to deploy more European forces on the Finnish-Russian border, where they would be close to core Russian territory and mean that Russia would have to divide its forces away from Ukraine.
They would have to take the attention away from the Ukrainian territory.
Exactly, and then they'd have to take forces away from the Ukrainian territory, and they'd be in less of a position to further attack Ukraine. That's the kind of thinking we need from Europe, rather than just putting 10,000 troops in a place where there's already a lot.
But what do you think could be other reasons for these countries, first of all, talking about wanting to put boots on the ground and then withdrawing from it?
I think the idea was a hope among some European countries that they could really interest in Trump in giving a serious American commitment to this. It's now clear that Trump really doesn't want to make serious American commitments to foreign deployment of troops. He arguably doesn't want to make serious American commitments to anything that lasts. We see that in his trade negotiations, where he seems to strike a deal and then changes his mind 10 minutes later. You see that in other areas of American policy. Trump is a fundamentally unreliable partner. What he's after is attention, and he feels that his position at the head of American power gives him the ability to command attention. We've now started to understand that if we can get Trump's attention, however, and get him to take attention, that means that we can get things out of the United States. That's how Europe got his attention by all of those leaders coming there. Someone said they were babysitting Trump, really, because Trump's moods change like those of a toddler. So the European leaders go, they tell him he's great, and as a result, they walk him down from whatever he happens to have agreed with Vladimir Putin to days beforehand. I don't think Vladimir Putin particularly finds this useful either, because he thinks he gets something from Trump, and then the Europeans get something else from Trump, and it turns out nothing is constant.
We know that U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg will make his way to Kyiv for the Ukrainian Independence Day. Do you think that he's actually be bringing some news to Zelensky, or this is just a signal, just business as usual because it's the Independence Day?
I think it's a signal that at least the United States are sending somebody there, and that's a positive signal. It would be a very negative signal if they hadn't. The way things were looking in January suggested that the US mightn't even be involved to that extent. Now that he's going, they're at least keeping normal protocol going, and this means they haven't completely withdrawn from Europe.
We've also heard from Viktor Orban after the drone strike on one of the oil pipelines, Russian pipelines. He sent a letter to Donald Trump, and we've heard from President Trump, who issued a response. Do you think this might negatively, this sort of response from Mr. Trump, who said that he is angry with Ukraine, do you think it might actually negatively impact what happens to Ukraine in weeks and months to come, especially in terms of those negotiations?
I think we need to spend paying less attention to what Trump is saying and more attention to what the United States administration is doing.
What are they doing?
Trump may be saying, he's going to be angry about it, but will it change American policy? No. What they're doing so far, and the important thing is they've allowed Europeans to buy American weapons in the critical areas where Ukraine still needs Ukrainian support, American support, which is air defense interceptors and some other areas like that, artillery ammunition, GMLRS ammunition, and HIMARS ammunition. Those are things that Europe can't easily replace at the moment, and that's where American support is still needed. It matters that the US is doing that. It doesn't matter so much if Trump says he's angry about what Orban has said or angry about something else. I mean, Orban really should think about getting his oil supplies from somewhere that isn't the middle of a war zone. Maybe
looking into some different sources. Do you think that Europe is ready for this sort of commitment that it would have to sign up for when it came to supporting Ukraine during the peacekeeping mission? Isn't it stretching it a bit thin when it comes to Europe in terms of the military support?
Well, I think the peacekeeping mission is a bit of an illusion. I don't think it's going to happen in the way that had been canvassed, because it doesn't make much military sense. I think Europe needs to think about how it can deter Russia in other ways. And there may be a token force, but the real pressure will come from other kind of forces. There are certain countries, whether it's Poland, the Nordic countries, the Baltic states, that are very clear about the threat Russia poses, but there are other countries in Western Europe that are still pretty ambiguous, and there are countries like Italy where the Prime Minister understands the threat that Russia poses to Ukraine, but is also trying to maintain a relationship with the Trump administration. Maloney is a very difficult balancing act.
Last but not least, we've had a bit of interesting news from China. China has signaled to EU diplomats that it is prepared to actually send peacekeeping forces to Ukraine in the event of ceasefire. We've heard from the German media outlet Welt. What game do you think China is playing, especially that it is, in a way, supporting Russia?
In that case, I would say China is trying to make a geopolitical mark by saying, look, we've got Chinese troops on European soil. I don't think that's something that European countries would contemplate.
Thank you very much. Garvan Walshe was my guest. Pleasure to have you, and thank you for joining us here during the forum.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.